Hello everyone, and welcome to Method's Alpha Guide for the Darkheart Thicket dungeon. I'm Chris Potter, and here with me is Zirps.
Hey guys!
Darkheart Thicket is quite a gloomy dungeon, and it's sort of like Everbloom and Shadowmoon burial grounds mixed together. There are a lot of flowers and wildlife that wants to kill you. A lot of the abilities on the first trash here will repeat you throughout the dungeon. On the first two packs you get, they have 4 abilities, 3 of which are casts that can be interrupted and should be. The first is Unnerving Screech, and this is a disorientating effect that lasts for a few seconds, and it's really annoying to get, so make sure this cast is interrupted. The second ability here is the cast called Despair, and this just puts a debuff on their target, causing them to take something like 2% less healing per stack. And it's really not that noticeable unless your tank gets a lot of them, like 10 or more, in which case your healer should just dispel it. The last ability on this pack is the ability Star Shower. This is a cast the mob does that then spawns the circles you'll see on the ground. Standing in these causes damage to you, and you should just simply avoid them. Lastly, the Nightfall mob will apply a debuff to a random player that deals damage over 12 seconds.
At the end of the path, you'll meet a giant bear with some spiders. The bear has a cast called Maddening Roar, which is an interrupt, so you should stop casting as soon as you see the bear casting this. The spiders puts a debuff on random players, but it's really not that important. Now you can choose between a couple of routes, and the map is rather misleading if you don't know where to go. We decided to stick to the left and go through the gap in the veins onto the main road.
You'll see on the minimap a star icon, and this dungeon has a couple of bonus rares available. They're sort of like mini bosses, but they don't really drop anything worth the time of killing them, so we just skip them. As you can see going down this path, by sticking to the edge we are able to skip some of the packs on the other side. The patrolling mobs however cannot be skipped, but they are not much of a threat anyway and they die fast. Just before the first boss you will have 2 of the big bears. Again, you just need to be careful of your cast being locked out by their maddening roar. The first boss you come to is Archdruid Gladolis. He's a really simple boss and only has a few spells that are easy to deal with. The first is Grievous Leap. He will leap to a target and then back to his original position. He'll then leave a bleed effect on the players he leaped on, causing them to take continuous ticking damage until they are healed above 90% of their max health. What your healer needs to do is simply get everyone with the debuff above 90% health. And this boss doesn't really have much else going on in terms of group damage, so it shouldn't be too hard. You can just spread out to prevent the boss from leaping on multiple people at once. The boss will also do an ability called Primal Rampage. He will do a charge in front of him, knocking back anyone hit and dealing a large amount of damage to them. Just make sure you're standing away from the tank and not where the tank is facing it. Lastly, the boss will do a spell called Nightfall. And this causes these zones you can see to fall from the sky. They deal damage if you stand in them, and it will slowly fill the room up with them. The room is pretty large, so you shouldn't run out of room, but if you do you can just stack together and let the healer heal through it. It is important you avoid standing the Nightfall as much as you can, to give your healer an easier time of healing up the bleed effect that I previously mentioned.
After the boss, we continue along the path, though you'll see we tried for some super try-hard skipping, and Just Wait even manages to use his Demon Hunter abilities to get up on the stone. We soon decide it's a lot easier to just go and kill the trash though. The trash here presents some new mobs we haven't fought yet. The flowers do a spell called Root Burst, which are the swirly void zones on the ground you simply want to move out of. The centaur mobs are quite annoying as they move around quite a lot and it causes them to not get AoE'd down with the rest of the mobs. They also apply a poison debuff, dealing damage over time and causing the target to take 25% less healing. As you can see, these mobs are just as easy to deal with as the others, providing you dodge the stuff on the ground that is. Before you face the second boss, you need to deal with a few Nightmare Dwellers. These gangly mobs have a single target fear ability with a cast time. The cast cannot be interrupted, but it can however be stunned, so make sure to use it. The healer should also watch the cast on the mobs and be ready to instantly dispel anyone feared, especially the tank. Due to this fear, it can be quite dangerous to pull more than 2 at a time, and if you don't have the DPS, you can quickly get overrun. Darkheart is the second boss in the instance. He's a really straightforward single target fight. His mechanics really are more irritating than dangerous. The boss will sometimes cast Shattered Earth. This does a knockback to everyone and deals some damage to them, and it's quite annoying when this happens mid-cast. When he casts Strangling Roots, a swirl will appear below each player for 1 second. After 1 second, the swirls will become roots, and any players remaining standing in them will get rooted for 1 minute. The roots are however targetable and killable, and they don't have a lot of HP, so if anyone gets caught, you simply just free them. After we saw how quickly they were being killed, we even considered stacking in melee and not moving from them at all and just letting them getting cleaved down. Another ability the boss has is Nightmare Breath. This is a conal breath in front of the boss that deals high damage to non-tanks, so the tank needs to make sure that the boss is phased away from any players in the group to avoid taking unnecessary damage. The last ability the boss has is called Crushing Grip. He will pick up a player and throw them to the ground, dealing some minor damage to anyone standing near the landing point of the player. We think he always picks the tank as his main target.
And after that boss comes probably the most annoying part of the dungeon. You need to make your way through this swamp to the third boss, but on the way there are a lot of mobs. Along the side of the path you will notice a lot of whelp eggs. If you get knocked or stand into these whelp eggs, you will pull dragon whelplings. The giant red elemental mob will do a knockback, and unless you are very careful, someone will usually get knocked into the eggs and pull more dragons. The mobs here have a lot higher HP than they should really, and this just takes up a lot of time. And if you were going to pug this part, it probably would take even longer because the chances of someone getting knocked into the other eggs is quite high. We did however reduce the time of killing ads a bit, as we noticed the second big Hydra spawn ad patrols back and forth. And even though we did have to wait quite a long time for it to be skippable, we still probably saved time just because those ads take a really long time to kill. When you get to the third boss, you will notice immediately that the room is surrounded by more eggs, and you will need to move over at least some of them just to get into the boss encounter. If you wanted to be ridiculously safe, you could pull the dragon eggs intentionally before the boss and kill them so that they're not a problem during the boss fight. However, we opted to leave all of them up, and we recommend you do too, as they're not really that troublesome. The reason these eggs could be trouble is, during the fight, the boss will do an ability called Downdraft. This pushes players back from him, and if you do not run against it, you will be pushed to the sides and into some eggs. It's really easy if you just run against it, but in pugs I could imagine a lot of players just wanting to finish their cast, and getting pushed into more eggs because of it. And of course, having a lot of dragon whelplings flying around, attacking the DPS and attacking the healer is very bad. The boss has two other abilities. One is his Vile Acid Breath. This is a conal breath attack that deals a decent amount of damage and also reduces the armor of players hit by a small amount. Simply don't stand in the breath. His last ability is called Earth-Shaking Roar, and this is what is causing all the bad stuff on the ground that will do damage if you stand in it. So you just need to avoid the bad void zones.
After that boss, you'll want to jump down twice into this hollowed out trunk and begin making your way to the last boss. On the path to the last boss, there are some new mobs and new spells to deal with. The imps can put a debuff on players, causing them to do pulsing AoE damage around them for quite a long time. These players will simply move away from everyone else. They'll also cause a swirling effect around the player, and after a short amount of time, they will explode. So if you get this debuff, you just move out. The imps and summoners also cast fireballs and shadow balls respectively, but they are not really that dangerous. The last boss is called Shade of Sevius, who is doing bad things to Malfurion, and it's our job to save him. This fight is considerably more difficult than any other boss in this dungeon, which are very easy in comparison. The boss's first ability is a disease debuff called Festering Rib. This deals large nature damage over time and reduces healing received by 5% per stack. This ability used to be extremely deadly if you didn't have a healer who could dispel diseases, as the damage it was causing was basically unhealable. Now though, it is a lot more balanced, and while it's still a dangerous ability, even if you do not have a healer that can dispel diseases, you should be able to handle the debuff okay. If you're struggling with the debuff, you should note that the boss only applies this when the tank is in melee range, so you can simply outrange it as a tank.
The boss's second ability is called Waking Nightmare, and this is the big swirly circle you can see around some players. This will permanently silence you unless you have another friendly player standing in your circle with you. So don't panic when you get it and run around like an idiot, because by moving away from your allies you're actually causing yourself to be silenced for a lot longer. However, you should be a bit wary about stacking with other players, because the boss has another ability called Induced Paranoia. This deals some damage to a player, and then gives them a debuff that causes them to be feared the next time they are close to an ally. This is a really annoying ability, and we're not really sure how to predict who it goes on before it comes, and on the alpha version at the moment it seems that you just need to accept the fact that you will get feared sometimes, because you need to be stacked with your allies to prevent them from being silenced.
The boss will sometimes do a channel on a player called Feed on the Weak. This seems to be random who it goes on, and it just does moderate damage to the player over 5 seconds. When the boss hits 50%, he will become unattackable for a short amount of time and cause fire to rain from the sky. And you'll be able to kill the root holding Malfurion in the middle of the room. Once you've freed Malfurion, he will repay you with a powerful buff giving all players 100% increased damage, 100% increased healing, and a strong healing over time effect. The boss will however heal himself to 100% after you free Malfurion, and the fight will basically begin again, but he will continue to rain fire from the sky, which you should be able to dodge.
This boss is in some ways a lot more fun than the rest because it's more difficult. However, it's also annoying because the fear effect is like really random, and also the fact that it takes a long time due to the boss healing himself back up to 100% halfway through. This completes our guide to Darkheart Thicket, and we hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video and give any feedback you wish in the comments. Cheers guys, see ya!
Bye guys!